So moving on to number 26 on this list, that's where I have Sam Darnold. And also, you might notice I'm saying 26 and not 27. I'm skipping 27. Number 27 is Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I've already made a full-length video on him, so I figured I'll kind of just skip him and move ahead to Sam Darnold. I've already explained what I like and don't like about him, and I'll put a link in the description below just if you are interested in checking that video out. I'll also put a little quick write-up of just why I put him in that placement down below in the comments, assuming I don't forget. But anyways, back to Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold's a pretty interesting player. First things first, I think there are going to be some people that are going to say that Sam Darnold should be higher, but keep in mind that this is just a right now list. I'm not taking potential into account. There's no doubt about it, Sam Darnold has top 10 quarterback potential, but I'm not taking potential into account. I'm talking about who he is right now. But anyways, let's just jump straight into the actual film study portion of this video, and I'll start off with this play. One of the things I definitely have noticed about Sam Darnold is that he has kind of a tendency to believe that he can basically make any throw he wants, and this one's a good example of that. What New York is going to do is fake a jet sweep to the top half of the screen, and they're also going to fake play action to the bottom half of the screen, and they'll have those two routes right over there. So basically this play is designed to be a pass to the top half of the screen. However, it's not really going to work out too well. If you see that receiver right there, which is Darnold's first read, isn't really too open because there are lions right in that area, and that could potentially be an interception. He also kind of has a receiver right there, but again, there's another lion who's in the area and could potentially run up and try to make a play on the ball, so he doesn't really want to throw it there either. And now there's worse news as there's pressure forming, so he's going to have to get around that pressure first, and at first he actually does a very good job of getting around the pressure. So now he has time to get his feet planted, and he looks over to see if there's a jet open, and there is a jet that appears to be open right over there, but of course he's not really open. There's another lion right over there who could run over and try to potentially make a play on this ball. However, Darnold's going to try it anyways, and it's going to be regrettable in hindsight. I'm sure you all remember this play as it was the first pass of Sam Darnold's career. He joined a short list of Brett Favre and Jameis Winston as the only three people to throw an interception in their first career pass attempt. Also, on a completely unrelated note, but one of my favorite stats about Brett Favre is that his first completion was actually to himself. He had definitely an interesting start to his career. But anyways, back to Sam Darnold, I think that actually kind of shows a lot of what Sam Darnold is. He kind of has that mindset of I can make any throw. He kind of is similar to Brett Favre and Jameis Winston in that sense. You know, these guys that believe they can make every throw, and it will get you in trouble no matter how good you are. Even if you are Brett Favre, Hall of Fame level talent, it still will get you into trouble if you believe you can make every throw every time. It is something that Darnold probably is going to have to learn to work through at a certain point, is to realize, hey, there are some throws I just can't make. There are some players that are just going to be so good, they're going to be able to make these great defensive plays, so I can't try to risk those types of situations. You know, that last play, that works all the time in college because the defensive backs just aren't as good in college, but in the NFL, when the talent is so much higher, that's where you see a lot of rookies getting into trouble, and it's where you saw Darnold get into a lot of trouble. Here's another example of it. This was in that Cleveland Browns game, and this is actually a pretty important situation. The Jets are down 4 with only a minute and 35 seconds left. So this is do or die situation right here. And it's a first down and 10, so they really just want to try to pick up some yards. They do still have some timeouts, and they have some time, so it's not the end of the world. All 3 timeouts and 1 minute and 35 seconds left at midfield. You definitely can't convert here, but you also can't really afford to be throwing interceptions here. So anyways, what this play is actually going to be is it's going to be a cover 2 zone, and the Jets do have a route right over there that's going to be right underneath those zones in coverage, and so that might be a good place to throw to. You know, it won't be a first down or anything, but you can pick up some yards. It's not ideal, and it's also not going to be Darnold's first read on this one, but the second he sees the cover 2, it probably should be the route he throws to, because that will be the most open on this play. And as you see right now, he is open about 5 to 7 yards down the field. It's nothing crazy, but you know, who knows, maybe he can break a tackle and pick up 20 or 30 yards. You have time and you have timeouts to burn, so just focus on moving the ball down the field at this point. However, Darnold kind of takes a little bit too long before making this read and realizing where he has to throw the ball to. As you see right now, he's still not even looking at the receiver who's open. Also, another development is going to be that Cleveland Brown right there, who's doing a very good job of winning his one-on-one matchup, and he is going to create some pressure. So by the time Darnold does realize who's open, he kind of gets bumped a little bit, and he makes a throw way after that receiver was open, and it results in a pretty much game-ending interception. Not exactly, they still did technically have a chance, but that was kind of, it wasn't quite the nail in the coffin, but it was definitely at least the coffin itself. On that play, he was just a little bit too slow in getting to his final read, and then by the time he finally did, he should have realized, okay, I can't make this throw anymore, just throw it away, but he still felt like he could make the throw, and it resulted in an interception. The results of this one, once again, it's going to be a cover 2 zone, and what the Jets are doing is going to play action to the top half of the screen, and they have a receiver running an out route right over there, which is a great way to beat a cover 2 zone. In theory, it'll be just past the Viking who's in charge of covering the flat, and it'll be just in front of the Viking safety who's at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. So if it can kind of get it in that gap in coverage, there could be a receiver who's wide open. It's a good route to throw to, and given the coverage, it makes it a great route to throw to, and that is where Darnold is going to look to throw. But of course, as we all know, what beats a good route is good coverage, and that's exactly what Minnesota is doing here. They have very good coverage, there is not a big window for Darnold to try to make this throw to. But even with that, Darnold is going to try it there, and he ends up throwing it too high, and it results in an interception. It wasn't a great throw, but it was also tough because it really needed to be a great throw for that to be completion. That was a definite risk that Sam Darnold decided to take, and you definitely could say that was regrettable in hindsight. You definitely could say that was not a smart decision to make. There's also something like this, where it's going to be a cover one hole, and the Jets have that route right there, which you would think is a terrible route to run against the cover one hole. It would be a good route if it was against like a cover one linebacker blitz, for example, because there'd be no defender who's in charge of covering that middle of the screen. However, since there is a defender in charge of covering that middle of the screen, this probably just isn't the route for Darnold to want to throw to, because that receiver is probably not going to be open for any extended amount of time. Granted, there will be a short amount of time, like actually as you see once this play develops, right now there kind of is a window where you can try to make this throw. But there is a linebacker already in this area, so either Darnold should have already thrown this ball, or he shouldn't throw this ball at all in that direction. Those should be the two options on the board, but once again, Darnold is going to try to force something that he really shouldn't have, and it results in another interception. These are rookie mistakes for sure. This isn't something that I would necessarily be concerned in the long term about, but it's definitely something I would be concerned in the short term about. You know, my criteria for this list is the top 40 quarterbacks that I would want going into the next season. Going into the 2019 season, which quarterbacks would I rather have? And because of these kind of flaws, I really can't put Darnold too much higher until he figures these things out, which I do believe he will. I mean, he was very young. He was only 21 years old last year. I think oftentimes people compare players who both entered the league at the same time, but really that's not fair. You probably should compare age, because that's actually a better indicator of how much room you have for improvement. Well, yes, Baker Mayfield did outperform Sam Darnold in their rookie year. It's worth mentioning Baker Mayfield is 2 years older than Darnold. So who would I rather have today? Well, I'd rather have Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is higher on this list than Sam Darnold is. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I wouldn't rather have Sam Darnold over the course of a career. Personally, I think it's still too early to tell in that regard. But there's also one other thing that I should mention. While he will occasionally make these throws that, you know, he has a very small window to try to fit it through, and it's probably a bad idea, oftentimes he will actually fit it through that window. Like on this one, the play concept is relatively simple. Basically what they're going to do is have play action right over there, and then they'll send the receiver who's on the top half of the screen to run deep downfield, and they'll send their fullback actually out to the flat on the top half of the screen. The idea behind this is that the jet who's running deep to the right side of the screen is going to force any defender who's in that area also further in that direction, and then the fullback who runs out to the flat will be open. That's the idea behind it. And as you see, if you take a look at what's on the screen, it worked out okay. There is a jet who's kind of open, but he's far from very open. So Darnold's going to take a shot here, but look at the throw and look at how accurate it is. That's exactly where you need that ball to be if you're going to try to make a completion here. He gave his player a chance and also put it in a situation where there was really no way that was going to be intercepted. Either that was going to be a catch or it was going to be incomplete. I also think that one of his more underrated aspects of his game is he makes some very accurate throws from time to time. I think everyone always talks about his big arm, but this guy has accuracy as well, which in my opinion is even more important in a quarterback than just having a big arm. Like on this play, it's going to be a cover one hole, and those are going to be routes in the top half of the screen, and so that route could be a good route to throw to. And I know it might seem similar to that one play I showed you earlier where I said you wouldn't want to throw it to a slant route over the middle of the screen on a cover one hole, but this is actually different largely because of how far away that receiver is from the middle of the screen. On the first one I showed you, the receiver that Sam Darnold was trying to hit was just right next to the zone in the middle of the screen. So all the linebacker had to do was just take a couple steps over and then he could easily make the play. Whereas on this one, the receiver is way far over to the top half of the screen and there's a lot more room where Sam Darnold could try to make this throw. It'll take that receiver a good couple of seconds until he gets into the middle of the screen, so he will be open for an extended period of time, unlike that last play. But what I like about this is look at where Darnold puts this ball. I mean, that's perfect accuracy. That's exactly where you want it to be. You really couldn't ask for anything better than exactly that. If you were designing a robot trying to make that throw, you would say, okay, it's perfect. We don't need to adjust it at all. That's exactly where we want that throw to be. The reason for that is because he waited long enough into the play so that the receiver could gain some separation, but he also didn't wait too long so that the linebacker could then run over and try to make a play. But he also hit his receiver in stride, allowing his receiver to pick up as many yards after the catch as possible once he did make that catch. Another one that stood out to me was something like this, where it's going to be a cover one blitz play, and he has a receiver running that route right there, which you know, it could get open potentially. As long as the safety who's deep doesn't try to take away his route, which that safety probably won't, then this could be one-on-one coverage, so as long as his one man can win his one-on-one matchup, then it could be a good situation. Of course, there are a couple of ifs on this play, so Darnold is going to have to sit back, wait, and see if his receiver is open, and then try to make a play. He can't just throw it there the second the ball is snapped, he does have to wait and see what happens. And now as you see, what's interesting here is the receiver is a little bit open, but not really. He's further to the bottom half of the screen than his assigned man, but he doesn't have much separation deep, meaning that Sam Darnold can't really throw it over the top of him. Of course, if this was a cover zero, he could just throw a shot deep and hope that his assigned receiver can outrun the guy who's in charge of covering him. However, since this is a cover one, if he just threw a ball up there, then the safety could easily run over and potentially even intercept it. So instead, Darnold has another idea. He's actually just going to throw it to the back shoulder of that receiver. It's pretty much the only way that play could have worked, and it's actually just great awareness to see that in the moment and then be able to know, okay, that's where I have to throw that ball to. It's really the only way that route could have worked worked if he threw it right there, and he also had the accuracy to make sure he got it there. So just an all-around great play from Darnold. I also feel like while I'm saying that yes, Sam Darnold does make some mistakes, he also has some plays that are very much not like a rookie, they're very much like a veteran, and this one's one of those. So basically what's going to happen here, the Jets are first going to have that receiver right there take a couple steps out to basically fake as though he's going to be trying to take a screen pass here, and it'll have two Jets go out to lead block for a potential screen pass, but then after that, they'll both run deep routes down the field. It's a pretty good play, and it definitely can work from time to time, but really what I found interesting here is take a look at Darnold. It's certainly nothing major, but he's doing a very good job of faking as though he's going to be trying to throw it to the bottom half of the screen, as though he's faking a screen pass. He's doing a very good job of that. This helps fool the Packers defenders, who both cut in, and by the time they do, then it's too late. Darnold can make an easy throw for an easy touchdown. Again, I know things like that aren't the craziest thing in the world. I think it's definitely more impressive that he can make those throws through tight windows than he can do something like this. But I personally think it's promising that he can do the little things as well. It's not just that he has a big arm, it's not just that he's accurate, but he can also do these little things from time to time. That's kind of why I have him so high on the list, even though he is so young. Yes, he has a lot of work to do, but I thought he steadily was improving throughout this season, and I do expect him to improve even more throughout the 2019 season. He's still young, which is why I can't have him too much higher on this list, but I think that because of his skill set, that's why I have him where I have him. I definitely think the Jets are one of those teams, there's always some teams that you say, okay, this team could take a big jump next year. You never really know who's going to, but they're definitely one of those teams that could. I think the 49ers are one of those teams as well, along with the Raiders. You could even throw the Detroit Lions in there, but I do think the Jets are one of those teams that has a chance to make a big jump in 2019. I also think that they're a bit fortunate in the fact that they are playing a relatively weak division, other than the Patriots, of course, who are just probably going to be great forever. But with both the Dolphins and the Bills, who are appearing to be in rebuilding years, I think this definitely could be a good year for the Jets to potentially get a wild card spot. But regardless of how good the Patriots are or how good the Jets are, I think that Sam Darnold definitely has the potential to be a great player, and I already think he's a pretty good player.